this is big. This is really big.
Hello and welcome to this edition of FOF Live presented by La Pop. That's LAPOP. You can check them out always on Instagram, Twitter, and at their Doral location. We have a big stream for everyone. This is the regular season finale of FOF pending the results of this series. As you can see, I have my Respect Miami 2020 shirt paying homage to the last time the Marlins made the playoffs. And again, big series coming up against Pittsburgh. We have people over there. We do have Isaac over there. Hopefully get a press box report from him later on in the show. But let me introduce everyone and we can get started in what was probably the craziest series of the Marlins season. Saving the best for last, the craziest for last. We have Eli, we have Alex Carver, and we have Gabriel Revilla. Everyone, how are you guys feeling? And how about Citi Field? I would say something else, but PG.
Yeah, well, this is unreal. I think my video setup has already frozen on me like 2 minutes into the stream. That's going to set a new record, so I'll get that sorted out in a moment. That's the big topic on top of everybody's minds. The fact that how that was handled in hindsight would have been great if they just got that game started earlier in the day, gave themselves enough of a cushion to get through the rain delays to finish it off. They got 90-something% of the way towards a win. So in your back pocket, you still feel pretty good about closing that out if necessary on Monday, if they need to do it. But as a result of this, they had to sit around on their butts in the clubhouse a little while longer. They didn't get into Pittsburgh until 4 a.m. So it is a really dicey situation. I get why some people are very, very upset about it. And ultimately, I think the Mets could have tried to do a little bit more. Ultimately, the weather is the biggest culprit here. I'm in New York, and it's been raining for almost ever since, 10:30 last night. It has not stopped raining in 19 hours since then. It's supposed to keep going even beyond that. So very unique meteorologic climate, whatever the verb is, just a very unusual circumstances that were very hard for them to deal with, and I sympathize with them.
Yeah, really crazy series. Carver, talk to me about that series, especially maybe the last 24 hours with that rain delay, and the Marlins had to also get a double header in, so it was really the insane week for the Fish so far.
Yeah, I mean, you got it right. I mean, it's just crazy. The Mets, like they're having a pretty good history of doing stuff like this, so it's not great to see. I remember a couple years ago they did it early in the year, and they had, I think, Marcus Stroman. They started the game when they knew that rain was coming and ruined his start, and he was not happy about it. And now this happens this year, and then they post for a picture in front of the dugout at the end of the game. Like, what is going on? Or not end of the game, but I guess the end for last night, I guess I should say. So, yeah, I don't know. And it's crazy to me to think about how long they sat around for almost 3 hours, like 1 o'clock in the morning, to actually make a call. And that's not acceptable. The Marlins that are still in this, they're still in it. They got to get to another city. They're playing today, and they make them sit around for 3 hours before making the call. Like, make the call and move on, whatever it's going to be. And they just sat on their hands with that, and it was tough to see.
Yeah. I think on my end, I'm I think everything, so much of winning is about momentum. And I mean, that's kind of a momentum killer in terms of, who knows how many more we could have put on. Now you chance it. I guess what is it? We're playing on Monday now?
Mm-hmm.
An inning?
Yeah.
And so so now it's even, in my opinion, it's almost, I know it's just one run, but it's also the Mets, and their offense can just get hot, and there goes the game. And so, I don't know. For me, it's kind of unfortunate. It is.
Yeah, just really bad there. And now we can even go into a little bit on what happened on the field, the actual game, playing the games. The first one, Miami lost just relatively just a large deficit there. Miami cannot get anything going in that first game against the Mets and losing 11-2. I believe who was the starter in that first game? Brax. That was the Braxton game against Lucchese. Now we have Eli back here, perfect with the even better background with the foliage going on, everything.
I think that's usually the culprit. Is I'm not in my usual setup, and I don't have a green screen, and so when I try to use the virtual, it sucks too much life force out of whatever I got going on here. So got to turn it off. You got to see my plant behind my left shoulder, but we'll make it through. And yeah, previous series, I don't know how you even describe it because they tried to play 3 games. They didn't actually complete 3 games. Mostly completed 3 of those, and it was classic Marlins stuff, right? Where they just get destroyed in the very first game, and yet they bounce back. When their pitching goes bad, Skip just lets it go. He really lets go of the rope when he feels like it's a little too much of a deficit to overcome, and yet he puts his guys in the best position to win. Beyond that, I thought the way he managed the second game of that doubleheader was perfect. Absolutely perfect. Like he kept Cueto in as long as you should keep Cueto in. You pushed him as much as you could, and then you went to your actual like difference makers, the guys you really trusted from that middle of the 5th inning on. So from Puck to even Robertson, gotta give some credit to him. You know, he has been better. His second month as a Marlin has been better than his first month, enough so that I think you can trust him in those situations. Then to Moore. Then to Nardi, then to Matt Moore. No, it was Moore and then Nardi because he didn't have Tanner Scott. So that is what made it even more incredible, is that he did it without Tanner to bridge it all the way to the end there. That was huge because on paper it was not looking good for that second game with Kodai Senga on the mound for the Mets. And the Mets pitched well, but the Marlins just were even better there. And then they have that really weird rally in the 9th inning, quintessential small ball, but also, as usual, one of the themes of this season, whether people like it or not, has been other teams screwing up in really critical situations. There was this grounder hit right at Brett Beatty with the bases loaded, and he totally whiffs on it, gets nobody out. That'll have the first run to score. Made it a lot easier to get the second run in right there. Absolutely huge. And it would have felt so much better if they just had, you look back on it and that really long replay review in the middle of yesterday's game, the pitching changes that Buck Showalter made using 3 different pitchers in the top of the 9th inning. If you take away one of those pitching changes, if you take away the replay review, then maybe they do squeeze in the bottom of the 9th before the rain comes. It was that close to being a totally satisfying series.
That's a good point. I didn't even think of that. Oh, no, I was just going to say, I didn't even think about that. How long that replay was. We could have possibly ended that game. I'm sorry, I'm just agreeing with you.
That was, to my memory, that's like the longest replay they've had all year. I was keeping track. It was at least 6 minutes, if not longer than that, for one that looked fairly obvious in there. Yeah, overall, the Mets won the season series. If the Marlins do miss out at the playoffs at the very end, they'll be kicking themselves a little bit for not beating them the same way they took care of like the Nationals, for example, this year. There's not a huge gap between the Nats and the Mets. I have to look this up right now. If you look at the standings, how far away are the Nats from the Mets this year? Only like 3 games. Like they're essentially the same team, except the Marlins dominated the Nats and they lost the season series to the Mets. That's how you should be viewing them. And yet, yeah, so we'll see. Once again, to me, this is kind of a spoiler, but this Marlins season, it feels like it should come down. The only way for it to end, to align with the theme of the year, is for them to have to fly to New York, for them to have to play that last little bit of it and close out that game to seal a spot in the playoffs. But we'll see, man. There was again, you just have to give so much of credit to the clubhouse, both the players and the coaching staff, for bouncing back for games like they did in that very first game of this series. There's just not a lot of teams that totally flip that switch from a blowout loss to a really gutsy win. And they've done it again and again and again and again this year. And people from the outside, they see the run differential of this team. They see how they're on paper, it just looks like a team that is well below average. But if you just watch the individual games, they this is a really unique situation, and that's what's made it so interesting and so memorable, kind of regardless of how this final weekend goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just really like almost incredible what they've been able to do. And you mentioned that second game with Johnny Cueto. But I wanted to go ahead and go back to that first one and just really talk about Brax for a second. Carver, what did you see with Brax? I know many people going into that probably hopefully expected Brax to go 6-5 innings at the very least to really time that game and hopefully jump the Cubs in that first game. But it just couldn't do it. Brax couldn't do it. Gave up too many runs early on. The Mets were swinging the bat. Balls were flying. Seemed like every ball was a home run. Just what did you see from Brax there? And anything wrong did you specifically see in Brax at that start?
No, I mean, I think it's just wear at this point in the season for a lot of these guys. I mean, this is almost double the most innings he's thrown in a season.
That's right.
So, it sucks to see him just lose the fastball command a little bit again. That was his crux before this year. That was really his crux. So I don't really think he had it in this start. I think the fastball command kind of hampered him a bit. Threw a bunch of pitches early. He went up to almost 80 pitches, and Skip was like, "Okay, it's enough." What did he allow? Like 3 runs or something like that, or 4 runs? Sorry, so he allowed 4 runs in 4 innings. Not the best, but Braxton has done way more than you could have asked from him this year. He's been the Marlins pitcher of the year. He's been their most consistent starter all year, and I mean, it wasn't perfect, but also wasn't the worst. So I mean, I think he was just okay. But I think Skip made the call that he did at the right time. And then unfortunately he had to go to Emmanuel De Jesus, who lost it late and gave up like 5 runs and it was over. So, not the best from Brax, but I think I would just corroborate it to just wear and tear overall at this point. And what is the longest season of his big league career?
Yeah. And with Brax, do you guys believe that potentially he could start again this season if they need him? Again, 4 innings, schedule short rest, and all important game. Right now, it's him Luzardo as 1-2 on that rotation. If need be, would Brax pitch again this year?
That is kind of what it feels they have to do. Well, they've taken a lot of steps to be protective of him and prioritize his health long term. This is certainly something he hasn't done before to make a start on that short rest. If you look around the league, even if that does happen, and that'd be awesome to see him stepping up in that situation. The way that happens, even if he does pitch, it wouldn't be a really deep start. They'd be really gentle with him in that situation. It's simply about having him available, being better than the alternatives, and having pitch. I think it would be a start. Even we went 4 innings in this last one. That's probably a best case scenario for him pitching on short rest for a guy that hasn't done it before. They just really do not have alternatives that make a whole lot of sense outside of bringing him back for that. Yeah, we'll reiterate again that only if that game matters. It's possible on both ends. If they drop these next 2, depending on what the Cubs do, they could be eliminated before game 162. And of course, it's more likely that they could clinch beforehand, that they could, if they win these next 2 and the Cubs drop at least 1. We will reiterate a couple times on this show. The magic number is down to 3. That is the number of Marlins wins and Cubs losses you need these next 3+ days to clinch a spot. So it could go either way. They're not going to have him pitch on short rest unless it determines whether they are in or out. And even if he does pitch, they're just going to need a lot of help. He's going to need the few relievers he trusts to step up, just like they did on Wednesday night. And likely they're going to need one unlikely hero to step up. They're going to need somebody from the soft underbelly of this pitching staff, whether it's another Cueto appearance, whether it's Brian Hoeing, whether it's who else did they just – we'll take a closer look at this later in the show as well, the current state of this pitching staff, that it's going to take a lot to pull this out, because they're in even though they're favored to win these games, you just can't get too comfortable at this time of year. We know that their pitching staff has been very hot and cold, and it's going to be fun. They've gotten to this point where you just need a little bit more to push them over the edge.
No announced starter for either team for the other 2 games in this series. Like, we don't know who's going to start. The Marlins don't know who's going to start, and the Pirates don't know who's going to start. So I guess we can make guesses by later on the show, but we don't know who's starting past tonight. So pretty crazy to see the condition of the Marlins pitching staff. And there's, like Eli said, not a ton to draw from really from AAA. I mean, they have Emmanuel De Jesus and Brian Hoeing still on this team, like, or around this team. Like, those are your depthiest of depth guys. And who do you go to? Like, who is there? Who else is there? Right. And it's getting thin, very thin.
Yeah.
I'll just say this real quick. I think too, watching this team this year versus watching this team last year, obviously like worlds apart. So much so that like every prediction that I know we're going to get to predictions later, but every prediction that I'm doing, I'm getting wrong because we're beating teams that we shouldn't. And we're sometimes we'll lose against teams that we should be winning. But I think it's really cool to watch resilience take place and seeing the bounce back and seeing they have like this fight inside of them. It's a fun season to watch. It is just fun baseball. Watching them come back even last night, with the rain delay and everything. I mean, it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, just really incredible what they've been doing, just to face almost this adversity, just with the conditions on the field, the header, and then even maybe potentially having to play another 4 outs that could decide the season if things go worry these last couple games against the Pirates. But for you guys, do you guys any last thoughts about that series against the Mets? Anything offensively, defensively? Just anything before we move on and talk about this wild card race?
There was that really strange play last night with DLC, the one that caused the big replay review with both DLC and Xavier Edwards making strange, both being involved in weird ways. And it's DLC just got called ball watching. He was watching the ball when he's going from third to home, not realizing that it was kind of a time sensitive situation as it turned out, and how so that particular play it was interesting because DLC did the best he could to amend for that. He did go 3 for 3 with a walk to try to produce as much runs as possible in that particular game. Just a really fascinating year for him, where they gave him a shot to be an everyday player, and there have been some really nice highs, but there are more than a few of these like fundamental lapses, both as a base runner and as a fielder. That was just an interesting play. I don't want to read too much into it. I don't know how much that applies to this upcoming weekend. Overall, Edwards has been he's played a lot this September. There were a lot of us pounding the table for them to call him up just because he was, the AAA hitting king. He really had nothing else to learn down there. The thing was, he's a second baseman on a team that has one of the best second basemen in baseball. And as it turns out with Arise, unfortunately, because of his injury, Edwards has been right in the middle of this September run, and it's been a lot more good than bad from him. Without looking, I think he's still hitting almost 300. And there have been some good situational stuff, but there have also been things like that where a very awkward slide, which is got him off the bag in that situation. To me, just looks like somebody that got caught in between what he was trying to do coming to that base. He's been a really fascinating player to observe right here, and a guy that overall I think his stock has gone up this year compared to what they thought when they acquired him. So we have our fingers crossed that Arise is going to be somewhat involved this weekend, that if they need him for a pinch hit at some point, if nothing else, he'll be able to do that. If not, it's Edwards is still like really prominently involved with this team, and potentially if they make it to the postseason, he is someone that's almost a lock to be on that roster as well. So that stands out. And just a shout out to John Birdie too. Hitting, he has
absolutely. I was just going to say it, but go ahead.
No, you take it from here on John Birdie being the hottest hitter on this team over an extended period.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, had hits in all 3 games that they played in this Mets series, and just the guy just steps up when they need him. Pretty much, he's a role player, as role player can be. The Marlins don't have shortstops, like clearly. Between him and Garrett Hampson, it's just cool to see the role players step up and contribute to a winning effort. So I love John Birdie, man. I've loved that guy ever since he got here. It's still weird to me. I told you guys this yesterday. I was looking at John Birdie highlights, actually. It's still weird for me to look at a Marlins player that wears he doesn't wear number 5, but I think he did previously. Anyways, it's definitely cool to see role players like this step up and get things done when there's a winning effort going on. So yeah, John Birdie's awesome. I also like Garrett Hampson a lot. Yeah, and it's just cool to see guys like this step up in situations like this. Yeah, it's super cool to see, because I mean, without Hampson and Birdie, the Marlins aren't doing what they're doing right now. There's no chance. So it's cool to see that.
Can I just say that something that has been more enjoyable to watch as well is Jazz battle lefties. I feel like it has gotten a lot better. I know it's not like astronomical, but it's gotten a lot better. Watching that at bat, even last night, I was just like, wow, off a lefty. I feel like it was not good until, what was it that they did that they changed his batting stance?
Oh, you muted, Eli.
Eli's muted.
Oh,
Almost a month ago at this point is when he changed the stance to crouch a little bit more. It was really subtle adjustment for that from him. And initially there was that hot streak involved, and then I'd say for a lot of this month it's been just more up and down and up and down and up and down. And that to me is why that double really stuck out to me, because honestly in this series he had a handful of at bats that didn't look super competitive, and then in this one against the lefty, they brought in a lefty they brought in
just
Anthony
for
Kay.
Jazz.
Yeah, not even a good lefty, a guy they just got on waivers a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
They just brought him in simply because he's lefty, simply because they like that matchup against Jazz. That was a fading Jazz move. That was not an Anthony Kay is going to save this game move. That is, we think Jazz can't do it. And for him to step up in that moment, yeah, it would have been, if they finish off that win that same night, he is one of the heroes of the game. Both him and Yuli Gurriel, of course. That was the Jazz. He's had a few of those. He's had a few of those specifically against lefties. I agree. That's been very encouraging for him moving forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and now we have from the press box at PNC Park, the one, the only Mr. Isaac Azoot. So we could bring in Isaac and see his thoughts on what's happening over there at PNC Park, what the Marlins have been up to, and have these players gotten any rest at all since flying over from Citi Field?
Yeah, well, rest has definitely been scarce for this ball club. Hampson can get to bed till about 6 a.m. A lot of the teams, 4 or 5 a.m., they went to bed. They arrived in their hotel, and they were able to sleep in a little bit till about like 12:30, 1 o'clock, and then they had to come straight to the ballpark. But I wouldn't say tensions, but, they can sniff how close they are. Everyone's really excited to be here, and Bruce Sherman's here. Spoke with him for a little bit. Spoke with Jazz about his big hit yesterday, and the fact that they brought in, like you guys were talking about, brought in the lefty, and for him to ream a double the other way like that, it was like a big, colossal FU to the Mets. So Jazz is really happy about that.
So are you liking the weather forecast? Looks promising these next few days. We don't think the grounds crew is going to be involved.
Gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, beautiful ballpark. It's like 72 degrees. It's absolutely phenomenal. And so weather will not be a factor today. And yes, Skip was asked about, have MLB talk to him about what possible scenarios they might have to go back on Monday. And they haven't reached out at all. Apparently Kim is on that side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And how are the players holding? I know you talked to a couple of the players. How are they doing after that last 3-4 days?
Yeah, Bell said something interesting. He said that, when you're like a little bit tired, you seem to make better swing decisions and you have better at bats. When you are a little bit tired, when you're all amped up, maybe try to hit everything and you don't make as much contact. But he seems to think that this is on the side of, for him anyway, that's on their side, that they're a little bit tired, might make better swing decision. They got Edward Cabrera going, so they're going to have to give him some runs. Let's see. Yeah, and Birdie.
Is there any?
Go ahead, Alex.
Is there any word yet on starters for the rest of the series or no?
No, they're just like they've been creative all month long. To quote Skip, they're gonna have to be creative for these next 2 games. Absolutely no name drop. Maybe post game today we'll ask about the starter for tomorrow at least, but no plan yet. No new names in the locker room, in the clubhouse either. I thought we'd see Ryan Weathers, but he just posted his 2023 social media post, so I think he might be done for the year. So we'll have to see.
We got some interesting news on Arise.
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah. So Arise, like I tweeted out, he took grounders at second. He took BP in the cages, and he was running a little bit. So all of that seems to indicate that he could be back as soon as tomorrow. Like I mentioned in the tweet, he's so sick and tired of watching from the bench. Skip's tired of seeing him on the bench. And there's just the final step is him seeing his footwork at second base. You know, all those moves that he has to throw for double plays and covering the bag for 5-4-3 double plays. Just got to see how he looks and feels in those scenarios. But other than that, it looks like he's on the cusp, as they say. And with just 2 games left after tonight, no time for rehab starts. Well, 2.5 games, I should say.
Almost mathematically impossible now for him to blow his batting title. So I know that was obviously on top of people's minds entering this year. And the one silver lining of him not playing is that he's been able to sit on that big lead that he has. He's up by 15 points over Acuna with 3 days to go, up 17 points.
Yeah. So it looks like he will become the first player in Major League history to win consecutive batting titles for different leagues. So that's something to look forward to, and it's something very special. We were talking about that in the dugout. It's not, they haven't gotten the national attention that it should have gotten. You know, all these stars like Cody Bellinger and the other teams that are trying to get this wild card spot. This is a pretty big deal, and it's not getting nearly enough national attention, in my opinion.
I mean, no matter how this goes the rest of the way, I saw somebody in chat say not too long ago. I mean, this is the best Marlins season since 2009, and they have the NL batting title winner on the team. So no matter which way it goes, hopefully the Marlins make the playoffs. But even if that would be, of course, a huge plus. But even if they don't, this is definitely a good blueprint season to follow for Skip as he goes into the rest of his Marlins tenure and the rest of the guys that are going to be on this team with him. So hopefully Arias sticks around for a long time. We'll see what happens. But definitely, no matter what they do with the playoffs, this season has been a success for sure.
Yeah, and I mentioned that 2009 season, Mr. Marlin actually won the batting title that year too. Hanley did that year. So it's very special. And we asked Skip, he did become the third manager in franchise history to reach 82 wins in their first season at the helm. And he was very humble about it and said it's not a managerial stat, it's a staff stat. And so it's that obviously I prefaced it by saying there's a lot more important things going on, but that's something that he did notice and he wanted to thank his staff for.
All right. Seems like everything is ready to go over there. Isaac, anything before we let you go and do flip fish? Anything that you're seeing on the field? The Pirates, the Marlins, Kim, Bruce, anything else before we get to flip fish?
No, they're all here, and just vibes are high. That's it.
All right. So
look at 2009 though, really quick. Before you go, Isaac, 2009, what was that year? Chris Coughlin winning Rookie of the Year, title, JJ, that. What a season! What a season! It was great.
All the stars aligned that year. Like you mentioned, Chris Coughlin winning Rookie of the Year. You had Hanley Ramirez winning the batting title. It was a fantastic season, and the rotation was pretty damn good with JJ and Ricky having great years. It was a fun year. I remember it very fondly. Yeah, 14. I was 13 during that season, so I remember it very nicely.
All right. So for flip fish, Eli, Isaac, waiting for you guys to take it away. This is yours.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We didn't tell the staff this time. Eli and I chose someone so the fans were able to try and guess it, and you guys. I don't know if Daniel, Alex, or Gabriel Revilla will be able to get this one. A Marlins and Pirate player. Not
Puerto Rican catcher.
Yes. Not a long tenure for either club.
The only person I can think of is Pudge, but that's Puerto Rican. Isn't he Puerto Rican?
I believe so, but it's not Pudge. Former fish Nick Johnson? No, not Nick Johnson.
It's not Cervelli. He's from Venezuela. Man.
It looks like we have an answer.
Oh, I know. This is Kevin's guy. This is Kevin's boy right away.
Let's go to the other side of the break. Let's go to the other side of the break. It is in honor of Kevin not being on this particular stream. We'll do the big reveal on the other side along with the Pirates preview. So stay with us.
Ah, yes, Mr. 93. Let's go. Good pick. I like this one.
I'll admit that I had initially chosen someone else, but Eli and I thought it might be too easy for y'all millennials.
Well, I have an admission. I already put this together before you even gave me your suggestion. So I very calmly convinced you to do the one that I had already done instead of making a second one for Gabby Sanchez. Gabby being one of the other players that would apply in this situation. But yeah, we got a few people getting it, starting with Sean Millerick and including Marlins historian and Navi as well.
I recommended John Cangelosi, but I literally had no idea that Benito played for the Pirates, and I just looked at it. He played 6 games for the Pirates. That's crazy. I had no idea that he played for the Pirates.
Yeah, look.
Yeah.
All the pictures I could find are him in spring training with the Pirates.
Yeah.
He's played probably more spring training games than real regular season games for them.
Wow, age 40 in 2005 with the Pirates,
Wow.
6 games. He was around for a long time.
Yeah, indeed. Well, there you guys have it for Flip Fish and your press box report, and they can clinch as early as tomorrow. Unfortunately, with that, 4 outs needing to be played, should it be necessary, that'll be played on Monday. It looks like at 1:10 p.m. But hopefully they won't need to. That way you have at least one off day before a potential wild card series. But it's going to be interesting. It's not going to be easy. So
is there a chance that the Mets forfeit?
I don't
Mets
know.
Forfeit.
I don't.
I mean, yeah.
That was like discussed somewhere in the clubhouse that if the game doesn't matter for any of the other teams like the Reds or the Cubs for seeding or anything, then maybe Buck Showalter says, okay, we'll give you the win. There is a slight possibility, but I highly doubt it.
Could they just revert it to the 8th inning if it doesn't matter? And
I believe that's what would happen. Luzardo would get his strikeouts, and I was speaking with Jazz, and I told him, I don't think you're going to get your RBI double. I don't think you're going to get your run scored. I don't think you're going to get any of those things. So he's like, no, that's BS. He wants to get that. So I'm very curious to see how that plays out, because if I were a betting man, I would say that it would be innings 1 through 8, Marlins loss if they don't play that game.
Do you have a separate prediction video, or do you want to give your prediction on here for the series?
No, Sugar, I'm sorry. My prediction is that the Marlins win 2 out of 3 and that they clinch tomorrow night. And my MVP is Pittsburgh's own Josh Bell.
Yeah. So we'll be asking everybody. We do have that bonus prediction there, as you already gave it. We're going to ask not only the usual stuff, but whether or not it's going to be enough to make the playoffs.
I don't like that. We'll see. But yeah, I will say that it will be enough. I think that the Brewers will help us out a bit.
Very good. Let's follow along with Isaac throughout this entire week. We'll be there. And hopefully covering the champagne celebration one of these nights.
Yeah. Knock on wood. Bye, guys.
Hey, Kevin.
Wait, so did I hear that correctly? They're going to go to the 8th inning. We lose our lead. It'll be a 1-1 game.
He's saying if it doesn't matter and they don't make up the game, that if they're not going to make up the game, and they would only do that if it doesn't matter. If it doesn't matter and they simply need to finalize the game, the way to do that without playing it out is reverting to the previous inning. They can't just simulate the rest of the game. They can't just because it was a lead change in that final inning and the Mets didn't get a chance to respond. That's the only course of action that they can do. So they would only do that if it doesn't matter. But if they have to end the game without the Marlins physically going up there, it would be a loss. It would be a Mets 1-0 win.
Dude, that makes it even more frustrating. I wasn't aware of that.
The drama initially last night, we'll move past it, but the initial drama was the concern that would happen, that there's nothing they can do. That would be, there was the initial concern that if they couldn't resume the game, that Mets would automatically win. But it was common sense prevails, where it's suspended. It's a 2-1 lead right now, and the only way that the Marlins, they'll have a great opportunity to win it if they resume the game. But that was a other conversation that we had. People, very optimistic people, saying, well, if they have it all clinched, but the final game determines playoff seeding, would you go all the way up to New York and play the game just to be the difference between the second wild card and the third wild card? That's a very that's a very optimistic way of looking at it. I don't know if they'll be in that position to have that luxury. But even in that event, I don't even think it would be worth it, because this is a pretty grueling stretch where you just came from New York. You're going to play 3 in Pittsburgh. If you go back up to New York on your only off day, then whatever the next step is going to be, that's another road trip. You're going to be all on the road for the wild card series, whether it is at Milwaukee or at Philly. So that will be fun calculus to look at. But yeah, like it's again, to me, the vibe to me is that the only way this can end, the only way that it should end, is going back to New York and having to finish that job just to make it in. So we'll see if that is how it plays out.
Yeah. Eli, if we can get that the playoff picture on screen, just to look at the different seeding possibilities that the Marlins could have, with some of it already locked. So you have the route where if the Marlins are the 6th seed, they face the Brewers, who again were almost half and half against the Brewers in the final stretch of the year. Then you have to go and face LA, who the Marlins did beat. I believe they swept them or took 2 out of 3 at the end of the year against the Dodgers. Or if they go for the 5th seed against division rival, you have to face twice in the Phillies and in the Braves. So I want to hear from all of you. Which side of the bracket would you rather be on? Would you rather be the 6th and face the Brewers, Dodgers, or 5th and face the Phillies, Braves? Carver.
I want no part of the division. So I would rather the Marlins be the 6th seed and face the Brewers. Performed pretty well against this team lately. So I would say I would like to face the Brewers, and then of course the Dodgers is really tough. But I don't want any part of the Braves. I don't want any part of the Phillies. Diamondbacks would be the team that I would prefer in that situation. But I think the more advantageous side of the coin, a team that doesn't know you as well. Of course, the Marlins don't know them as well either, but Braves and Phillies, I want zero part of that side of the bracket. So I'm gonna go Brewers, Dodgers as my poison in this situation.
And if you, Gabriel, are you the same like Alex, or do you feel like, because maybe the Marlins know so much about the Phillies and Braves?
Well, my take is actually, if I can just swap out the Brewers and the Phillies and still have the Dodgers, only because the Brewers have the pitching and the Phillies not so much. But besides that, offensively, I would take the Brewers. I kind of like being the 6th seed. And then plus, against the Dodgers, you have way more of a chance of getting to the NLCS versus the Braves, which arguably is the best team in all of baseball assembled. So, yeah, that's my take.
If we rely, the Marlins did take 3 out of the Braves. They did sweep them. So potentially, could the Marlins do that again? Or are you with everyone else where you feel more comfortable if the Fish were the 6th seed?
Do I have this right? Didn't the Oakland A's also sweep the Braves this season?
I think so.
I distinctly remember that. So I'm not reading too much into that one particular occurrence. All I'll say is, as a content person, the content would be a lot more spicy if they played the Phillies and then the Braves in either order.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't have much relationship with the Brewers, even with the Dodgers. The Dodgers, of course, being a very having extremely high expectations and a huge fan base. In terms of the discourse and the engagement that you get throughout the series, like to me, I think it would be more fun to experience facing familiar rivals, but at the same time, it's the likelihood of making it through those rivals is not as good. In the postseason, even more so than usual, hitting homers is how you score runs. That's how a lot of games are decided, and the Phillies and the Braves do that as well as any team on the NL side that's getting in there. There's just not a whole lot you can do with some of those hitters sometimes, even when you make perfect pitches to them. Both of those lineups just extremely, extremely deep. The cliche is that pitching wins championships or defense wins championships. And I don't know if I think it's a little more complex than that. I think when you have opponents like that, and that's a deficiency that the Marlins have, and that's why on paper, the Marlins don't seem built for the playoffs, just because their power kind of comes and goes. I think any way you look at it, the easier path is that top path, the path that they're currently going to be on, the one that they're most likely going to be on if they actually make it in. As I will just pull up the actual standings themselves for just to make sure people so look at actually even better. I should keep an eye on these other teams and what they are, other contenders, and what they're doing this weekend. The Cubs facing the Brewers, as we mentioned. The Brewers not leaning into their strength of their starting pitching. I think both Brandon Woodruff and Freddie Peralta were on track to go and pitch in this weekend, and they're not going to do that because there's nothing else. They're resting up for the actual playoffs themselves. The Reds are barely clinging to life. Somebody asked in the comments about how it is that the Reds could catch up, and if they win out and the Marlins lose at least 2, that would be enough. But potentially as soon as tonight, the magic number to get ahead of the Reds and put them away is 2. So the Marlins just win 1 and the Reds lose 1, then the Reds are out of the picture. The Marlins got all the crucial tiebreakers over these other teams. As it comes down to the wire, that's why their odds are pretty good, is that against all these teams, against the D-backs, against the Cubs, against the Reds, got the tiebreaker against all 3 of them, and that's going to make the difference. We were looking at this many weeks in advance.
This is exciting.
And it has come down to fruition. These tiebreakers, it's in winning head to head against 2 of them, and then because they split against the Reds, it came down to record within your own division, and the Marlins did a better job taking care of their own division than the Reds did. So there's still so many ways that this could go. The Padres are not mathematically eliminated yet. If they win out and everybody else loses out, then the Padres are going to get in. But I have ignored them because there's a difference between being a contender and then being alive. So even though they are alive, they are not mathematically done yet. I'm going to let them surprise me. If they want to shock the world and put together the most consistent, perfect weekends and get all the magic to work against these other teams, and so be it. But I'm gonna think fairly confidently that's gonna be these 4 teams for 2 spots to get into the dance.
Yeah, just
this is meaningful baseball right here.
We could go before going to the Pirates. How are the matchups looking for the other games? You mentioned for the Cubs and Cincinnati. Who are they they're putting out there, and what do they look like for today? Because those are also games Marlins fans should look at.
Yeah. If we look at, we'll start with the Reds. The Reds are going with one of their many rookies, Brandon Williamson, against whoever. The Cardinals don't have any starting pitching at this stage of the season. Somebody named Woodford is going for them. With the Cubs and the Brewers, the Cubs have Kyle Hendricks and the Brewers have Colin Ray.
Hey,
I think
Marlins legend right there.
The former
What
Marlin,
guy.
who I think he pitched 1 game against the Marlins when they were in Milwaukee, if I remember right, a few weeks ago. So we will see. That's not their best. That's not their best guy, but Ray he's actually spent a lot of time on their roster this year, pitching for them. And then the big series that I didn't touch on, the sexiest one, is the Astros versus the D-backs, because the Astros have not secured their spot yet. The Astros have a lot to play for as well, and that is why that 5th seed is still open, because I think a lot of people would say you just take a step back and you look at the D-backs and the Astros, and that a lot of people would pretty understandably say the Astros are the better team. And if both of them are on the same footing in terms of what they have on the line this weekend, then you could totally see the Astros winning that series tonight. The D-backs are going with their best. They're going with Mr. Zach Gallen against Jose Urquidy, who's been out for most of the year. So the D-backs win that one. I need to double check the tiebreaker. I don't think they have the tiebreaker. I think the Cubs have the tiebreaker over the D-backs, if I have that right. But they could potentially clinch a playoff spot tonight if the D-backs win and the Cubs lose. So then it's a question of just seeding for them. But just a glimpse ahead to the rest of the series. With the Marlins, we have no idea what the pitching. We've been over this. We had no idea. Tonight it's Edward Cabrera pitching a lot, but the next 2 games are really up in the air. It's a little bit more defined for the other ones. The D-backs game, the Astros are going to be using Verlander against them tomorrow. The Cubs are going to be using Jordan Wicks, who he's had a really good run as a rookie lately, but putting him in a very big spot. That's obviously a big credit to what they think he's capable of. And then the Reds tomorrow, they're going with yet another one of their rookies. That has been a theme. And I saw this guy pitch recently, Connor Phillips, where he was pretty dynamite early in the game. And then things blew up on him later on. He's only had 4 career starts so far with a 6 ERA. Do we have any idea what things look like on Sunday? Sunday is, no idea what the D-backs that day. With the Cubs, Justin Steele. Oh, so if necessary, Justin Steele pitching.
Wow.
Obviously, the Cubs have a spot
Wow.
locked up. He'd be resting, but Justin Steele versus Adrian Hauser on Sunday if they need it. And with the Reds, if they're still alive on Sunday, that is Hunter Green Day.
Ooh.
So a big name who actually hasn't had a great year for them, but a guy that is as unhittable as anybody when he's on right there. So it's easier to see what these other teams are doing. The Marlins just being in this particular situation where, because both Braxton and Luzardo just pitched, this goes all the way back to the Tuesday situation that pushed Braxton back. You'd feel a little bit better about things if Braxton had pitched on Tuesday and then was available on regular rest on Sunday. But that is something that got overlooked by yesterday's hijinks, because 2 times in 3 days, we have these weird field situation issues with that grounds crew in Citi Field. So the first issue got overshadowed by the second issue, but both of them have combined to put the Marlins in a really tricky spot.
Yeah, it's just different really scenarios that could possibly happen. But let's talk about today's game. Let's talk about the Pirates, the Marlins. Let's look at these lineups. The Pirates are coming off a win against the Phillies, which is not something to sneeze at. We can go ahead. Maybe we could start off with the Marlins, of course, looking at their lineup with Soler, Bell, Berger, Jazz, DLC, Birdie, and with Garrett Hampson towards the bottom with Jacob Stallings. Gabriel, looking at the Marlins lineup, what do you like? A lot of different things to know. Let me see here. Yeah, no Xavier Edwards, John Birdie, and Hampson primarily in the infielders. What do you like there for their chances against the Pirates?
Man, I mean, I've been really liking. I think it was pretty recently that Skip started putting Jorge in the leadoff spot. I really like that. We really need to figure out a way to keep him for next year, but that's a whole nother conversation. Anyways, overall, no, I like it. I'm expecting Josh Bell to do some big things. Didn't he play with the Pirates?
Yes.
Yeah, and played most of his career with the Pirates and was had some nice highs in there.
Yeah,
him and Starling.
So my only concern is I don't necessarily think we do that great here in Pittsburgh. At least not normally, I feel like. So that's really my only concern. But all in all, I love the lineup. John Birdie's hot. I really like Jesus Sanchez because you just never know with that guy. He's just he's an interesting player to watch. Then, of course, you have the notorious Jacob Stallings. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, getting another former Pirate.
That's right.
Obviously been there right before the trade. So we will see. I think he must have played there last year when the Marlins made the trip as well.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly. So with this, good to see both Soler and Berger and Bell had little injury scares in New York. So it's good that they're both in there. And with if it's a choice between Birdie and Edwards in the lineup, you have to go Birdie if that is the situation. Birdie's been just this unlikely power surge that he's had recently. That's just a new dimension to his game, and they need to give him a shot to keep on doing it. Otherwise, with Stallings, he's caught most of Edward's starts this year. Edward is such a key to. We can focus a lot on the lineup. A lot of this just comes down to Eddie and whether he throws strikes. Overall, it's been a lot better since he got called up from the minors. He's had one outing in there where he just walked everybody, and all the other ones have been like pretty good. So he's a really complicated player in there. There was a lot of high expectations for him this year that overall he hasn't quite met, but ultimately he'll be a legend if he dominates tonight. This is ultimately when it matters with him. He is by default their number 3 starter right now. A guy that got demoted to the minors, a guy that you still don't know exactly what you're getting from start to start. Somebody that they sometimes use an opener in front of, but he is one of their most important guys. And for this series, he is the most important pitcher in here, just because those other guys are not on full rest to go at it. So this is really fun. It's exciting because he's capable of shoving. You know that when he is on his game, he's capable of missing bats and getting soft contact and just being a really good overall pitcher. The potential is there for things to go pretty well. You don't have to dream a little too much to see this first game going well. And that being said, this is a Pirates team. You don't recognize a lot of these names. You don't see a lot of color next to them because this entire bottom half of the lineup, they're all rookies. They haven't played enough to qualify for anything. So you don't get a good picture unless you really dive into the numbers there. As a group, they've been hitting just pretty well overall. To me, Jack Suwinski versus Edward Cabrera, that is one of the key matchups of this entire series. Suwinski is great power hitter against right-handed pitching, and Edward has amazing reverse platoon splits. He's great at shutting down left-handed hitters like Suwinski does mainly because of his changeup and how special a pitch that is. So it is strength on strength with Jack Suwinski, their cleanup hitter, and Edward in the rotation. So because of where he's sitting in the lineup, there's a chance you see them face off 3 different times in this game. And if Edward wins all 3, Marlins probably win. And if Suwinski wins at least one of those, then I think that is a key difference maker in here. So, but it is a lot of new names in here just because of how young they are, and overall it is worked out for them.
Yeah, to me, you're going to go as Jazz goes. I think he's the most important figure in the Marlins lineup. He was good in the Atlanta series, not good in the Mets series, the first Mets series. He revived it in the 3rd game against Milwaukee, and then in this last series, he was pretty okay. And the Marlins may have won that series. Maybe they still will. But yeah, I think you go as Jazz goes in this series. And earlier this month, he was riding a pretty cold streak. So hopefully he keeps up what he's been doing lately in these last couple of weeks, or last week and a half, I guess I should say. And the Marlins are going to have to lean on that offense because it's one of their most talented players. They're going to need him in this series, especially here late. And then if they get into the playoffs, they'll need him there as well. So hopefully he can end the regular season well and move into the playoffs doing what we know that he can do. So let's see if he keeps it up or if he goes cold again. I think it's going to be a main thing to watch in the series.
Yeah, well, we'll mention more on the pitching matches, but again, we have no clue who either side will be doing for anything besides this first game. But again, we can dive deep a little more into this to what the Marlins could potentially throw out there in those 2 games. Eli, who would you be your top 2 suggestions for the Marlins if you had to give your 2 cents? If they said, Eli, we need who are we putting out there? Who are the 2 guys you would tell them?
I would tell them the key to me is you put Tanner Scott out there every game until it's clinched. I want Tanner Scott. He's done it this year. He pitched back to back days. He's had one of the best. We've noticed this. This has been recognized, especially the last month or so. It's one of the best relief pitcher seasons the Marlins have ever had. It's been that special, even though a lot of it is spent not as a closer. Since he's gone into a closer, he's been really reliable in that role for the most part. Just the combination of missing bats and being just consistently good and cutting down on the walks, basically cutting them in half from what they used to be. So I wanted pitching. He was on paternity leave. We saw this coming a while away. I knew back at the start of the season that he was at a baby due in September. And as it got closer and closer, we're like, well, now he's the most important reliever. And he rushed back. Instead of taking 3 full days, he took 2 days because he wanted to be available last night if needed. But now, I don't know if well-rested is the right word. But it's been a while since he's pitched. You could say that. I don't know if you're well-rested with a newborn, but the fact that he hasn't pitched in a while, that's the most important thing to me, is that he pitches every single game, full innings in those games if they still matter in here. Other than that, we'll see what Brazoban looks like. We've not seen him pitch in over a month. He just came back from the IL. That's another guy that Marlins used to trust a lot. Matt Moore, you could kind of put him in the same. He's an interesting situation because he's not playoff eligible. He is emptying the tank this weekend. Matt Moore, this is your season, right? For a guy that has overall had a very good year, in a good couple of years, he's lined up to have a nice contract. And in this awkward situation where if they make the playoffs, he's just sitting left bench for that entire run. He's not going to get to pitch. Yeah, Matt, to me, you asked for 2 pitchers, and I'm just going to give you 2 relievers, Matt Moore and Tanner Scott. I think they should both pitch in every game of the series until something is clinched for different reasons. Scott, because you need him. He's your number one option. If you're going to lose a close game, or if you're going to be in a close game, he needs to be on the mound for it. And then with Matt Moore, this is his season right here. He has less than 48 hours left in his entire season. So all out.
Yeah.
What is up with George Soriano? We haven't seen him pitch since September 22nd. He's still on the team. He was also on the paternity list. He's still on the team. He hasn't pitched in over a week. What's going on with that?
Maybe it's for this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. And this guy could go multiple innings.
Yep.
So I think that this is a guy that they could definitely use in this situation. He wasn't great the last time that he was out there. He was also probably had, of course, has probably his newborn kid on the mind. He just had a kid as well back in August. So, like, where has this guy been? Why hasn't he pitched? Is something going on there? Is he injured, or is it just that they haven't used him? So if they need multiple innings, that guy could definitely do it. And I think he's one of their better options to do it in the situation if you really need a guy.
I agree.
Yeah, 100% with everything you say there. With Soriano, Hoeing, Carver, what's your take on Hoeing? Is this a guy that should have any playoff pitches? Should it be him? Should the Marlins bring in Weathers? What is your stance on Hoeing before we end this and get to everyone's predictions?
No, I think that Hoeing has done a lot more and proven a lot more than Ryan Weathers at this point in their careers. Hoeing was a guy that used to be a ground ball pitcher, and he came out this year and was a lot different. Of course, he's had his struggles. He had like that 10-run blow up. He hasn't been perfect, and he's not really a rotational starter. But if you need multiple innings, it's another guy that can do it. So, I definitely think it should be Hoeing over Weathers to answer your question. But I feel comfortable with Soriano over both of them for sure. If you're looking for one guy, if you need two, maybe it's Hoeing, possibly, or you go to an opener like Eli said. Maybe you go somebody else. So maybe more, maybe. Who knows? But yeah, no, Hoeing can still do it for multiple innings. I'd still feel comfortable giving him like 3 innings max. Maybe he could go a little bit longer and surprise you. That would be good. But I would say he could be counted on for like 2-3 innings at least, because you're going to need those innings. The innings are at a premium right now. You're going to need them. So they need guys like this right now. We talked about role players. Here's more role players they're going to need. This is what it's going to come down to, is the back end of this roster, not just the front of it.
Yeah. And you could say that also Hoeing, PJ, a lot of pitchers are good unless they face the Braves. But with that, we're going to go ahead to prediction time. Eli, let's get that video.
This is prediction time.
It's time.
All right, the final regular season prediction time of the season. This could potentially make or break some people's leaderboards as we end it. So again, for prediction time, it's always you're gonna pick the series winner, how many games, and MVP. It could be Pirates sweep and your MVP is Luis Arias, for who knows. It could be whatever. It could be, you can mix and match. And then also for this prediction, we're going to be asking, do the Marlins make the playoffs? Simply yes or no question. And that will be an extra point for you, as we're looking at some of our super subscribers who it seems like everyone believes in the fish. A lot of magic. A lot of people believe in magic for this one.
Yeah, Gabe always makes his predictions as well, but obviously keeping it in his holster for this one to keep us on our edge. And yeah, he's not having a great season, and honestly, I'm not having a great season either. It's just that I make predictions on every single show, so I've had a lot of opportunities. And as it has played out, we look at a very awkward situation with the fact that the last game of the series against the Mets was suspended, so there was no series winner. I didn't grade those picks. The leaderboard kept it the same from where it was before that series. Super subscriber Williams, he's on top. He's 3. So those results, if they finish up the Mets series, then we will award points from that. Otherwise, we're just keeping it on hold right now. And because we added the bonus pick in here, whether they make the playoffs, we're going to count that as 3 points. We're going to count the series, the number of games they win. That's could be up to 2 if you get that right. The series MVP, that could be an extra point as well. And you could get a maximum of 6 if you go truly perfect. If you get everything about the script correct, including if they make the playoffs. And we saw there's a lot of optimism, understandably so. They got the tiebreakers. They got, all things considered, this is a pretty decent matchup for them, even with a team that is feisty and plucky. It's a team with a lot of young players, both on the pitching side and the hitting side. that it would be disappointing if they don't win this series and put themselves in the best situation to close this out. But yeah, thanks everybody for playing along with prediction time. This year has been highly competitive. There's still some doubt depending on how this finishes up. Grant still has a chance, and I guess technically I still have a chance, and Daniel can finish tied for it. Like, this, a lot of crazy stuff would happen. But yeah, thanks everybody for being involved with that. We've had close to 100 different people between our stream guests and our super subscribers and our staff. The full leaderboard, which is on our site, fishonfirst.com, is everybody that's been involved with trying their best to figure out this team. It's been tough to figure out. It really has, because of how one series to the next, they can completely switch things around.
So true.
All right, Eli, we cue the music and we can start with predictions to see how it's going to end off the year. Starting off, we're going to go with Eli. Are you going to have your prediction more towards actual what you think, or the leaderboard?
More towards the leaderboard, more towards I can absorb as much hate as anybody if it means that it's what's best for the team. So to give myself a chance, I see all the optimism out there. I need to swerve and go the other way. I think the Pirates are going to win this series. That's going to be my prediction. 2 out of 3. We'll give MVP honors to Henry Davis. And we'll say that combined between this weekend and whatever happens in New York on Monday, I think the Marlins are going to miss out on the playoffs. All the momentum seems to turn their way, and I think everybody is overreacting there. I'll be the one guy that says they come up just a little bit short. And see, we got this recorded in case I'm wrong. Go ahead to everybody else. I'm sure you have some different ideas about this.
All right, Gabriel.
All right. I'm going to go 2-1 Marlins. And then my MVP pick is going to be none other than Josh Bell. He's coming back to Pittsburgh. I think it's going to be great. And do I think the Marlins make the postseason as a wild card spot? I believe they will. I'm gonna be optimistic. I'm gonna believe that they still got fight in them. So that's what I got.
All right, we'll go to myself here. I would go the opposite, but I can't take the hate. I will not accept any of that. I'm going to go Marlins win this series 2 out of 3, and my MVP is going to be Mr. Burger, Mr. Jake Burger. He's going to have a burger bomb in every game to help the Marlins win 2 out of them. And I'm going to go the Marlins make the postseason. Next up, Carver.
It's going to come down to role players, and you guys know I love my role players. These guys are going to take it seriously, and the Marlins will sweep the Pittsburgh Pirates to control their own destiny and get into the playoffs. I really believe that the Marlins will get this done. They're pissed off after New York. They're going to get this done, and these role players are going to come up big. And the MVP, we talked about him, number 5. It's still weird to me that a Marlins player is wearing number 5 again, but he is, and he's doing great. John Birdie.
Okay. That's going to do it here.
Yeah.
Hopefully, Eli, well, how would you feel if your prediction came through?
Since I last checked the comments 3 minutes ago, we had 36 new comments, and I'm afraid to look at them. What people are saying. I think I'd be really at peace with this season, kind of regardless of how this weekend goes. To be this meaningful this late as this year, with a lot of adversity that they've gone up against, I think they should be proud. And the one thing we didn't mention on this show is we don't know what Kim Ng's status is. Her contract not guaranteed beyond this year. I've been critical of her at certain points this year, not this year, but really over the course of her tenure. And I thought both her and the rest of the front office they deserve a pat on the back. They deserve an extension, a pay raise. I think they have made a lot of what they've had and come pretty close to just maximizing that talent as well. It's a lot of credit to them for the moves they've made, the position they put these players in. We got to be thankful to them for allowing this season to exceed any of the reasonable expectations that we had going into it.
All right. Hopefully the next time you see us will be the wild card stream, going back to that, see if Miami can do that. Hopefully they won't need those 4 outs against the Mets and already clinching the postseason. But again, for myself, for Eli, Gabriel, Alex, Carver, this is FOF Live presented by La Pop. Go Fish.